It's a great paradox that while Aboriginal people were using maps in practical and spiritual ways in Australia, that at virtually the same moment Europeans were putting their minds to imagining what the Antipodes might be like. This went on for centuries. The early Greeks imagined at Antipodes the idea of south, that there must indeed be a southern continent to balance the landmass in the north, along with it the idea that there must be a place where people stand with their feet opposite yours, and so the Antipodeans came into being, at least in the ancient European mind. With rediscovery of ancient European mapping sources 1,000 years later, maps began to appear which showed a vast continent which went by many names. Terra Australis, Jave, Grande, Magallanica were a few. Post-Columbus, people were looking for new worlds to explore and exploit, gold and other precious metals, spices, and it suited some to keep the Southland myth going. In the early 1500s, much of this speculation centred on the French port of Dieppe in Normandy, where cartographers apparently had access to Portuguese voyage information. In displaying the anonymous work known as the Harleian Map and the Boke of Idrography by Jean Rotz, we're bringing these two maps to Australia for the first time. They were powerful maps in their day. The Rotz Atlas was presented to Henry VIII as demonstration of his skills as a map maker. The Harleian Map, with its huge landmass south of Indonesia, is so reminiscent of Australia's east coast that it's led many to accept it as a product of Portuguese or possibly French voyages long before the Dutch. It is a great pleasure to be able to exhibit the first maps of Australia by the Dutch, who eventually charted the coast from the Gulf of Carpentaria to the Great Australian Bight. This was mostly a byproduct of the spice and commodity trade in the islands to our north. But importantly, the Dutch East India Company employed a chief cartographer whose job it was to build a store of maps, the secret atlas of the Dutch East India Company. This stunning map, painted on parchment in the early 1600s, is the work of Hessel Gerritsz, chief cartographer of the Dutch East India Company and a key figure in the mapping of Australia. It's hard to appreciate what an important trading power the Netherlands was in the 16 and 1700s, until you witness firsthand their great skills in navigating and charting the oceans. Remarkably, a few of their onboard navigation charts have survived, showing the tracks of successful voyages, and some less so, as they traversed the Indian Ocean to the Spice Islands, occasionally detouring to Australia. Australia wasn't the main game and turned out to be more a fascinating hazard than a trading opportunity. In adding Australia, or New Holland as it became known for 150 years, the Dutch mapped 2/3 of the continent and included it on some beautiful maps. But with several ships lost off the WA coast and no obvious trading partners, interest waned in Australia as a source of revenue. Soon the Dutch had other East India competitors to worry about, and Australia was more or less forgotten for 50 years.